I found my only son standing in a line for free stale bread while his wife was drinking champagne in the house I paid for. She thought she had broken him. She thought she had won the lottery by kicking him out. But she forgot one tiny detail. The name on the deed is not hers, and the man she just declared war on has never lost a fight in 72 years. Before I destroy her life piece by piece, let me know in the comments if you think family betrayal is the worst kind of sin. Hit subscribe if you are ready to see justice served cold. The Chicago wind cuts differently when you are watching your legacy freeze to death. It was 10 degrees below zero, and the wind coming off Lake Michigan felt like 1,000 razor blades. I sat inside a rusted Ford rental car that smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap pine air freshener. It was a far cry from the heated leather seats of my usual sedan, but I needed to be invisible today. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes before I unleashed hell. Across the street, the neon sign of St. Jude's Soup Kitchen flickered and buzzed against the gray twilight. A line of about 50 people snake around the brick building. I saw men with hollow eyes, women clutching plastic bags filled with their entire lives, and veterans who had been forgotten by the country they served. They shuffled their feet in the gray slush, trying to keep the blood moving. I watched them with the detached pity of a man who has never known hunger. I have known loss and I have known war in the boardroom, but I have never known the physical pain of an empty stomach. Then I saw him. He was 20 people back in the line. At first I told myself it was a mistake. My mind was playing tricks on me. It could not be Leo. My son is an architect. My son drives a German car. My son lives in a 3,000 square foot colonial in Oak Park that I helped him buy 10 years ago. But the way the man stood with his shoulders hunched forward as if apologizing to the world for his existence was unmistakable. That was Leo. That was the posture of a man who had been beaten down not by fists, but by life. He was wearing a thin gray hoodie that I recognized from his college days. It was threadbare and offered zero protection against this brutal winter. He was shivering so violently that I could see it from 50 feet away. But he wasn't shivering because of the cold. He was shivering because he had taken off his heavy winter coat. I squinted through the windshield, and my heart stopped beating for a second. Wrapped inside that oversized coat standing next to Leo was a small boy. My grandson, Toby. Toby is 9 years old. He should be at hockey practice right now. He should be complaining about homework or playing video games in a heated living room. Instead, he was pressing his small face into his father's side, trying to steal a little bit of warmth. His lips were blue. I gripped the steering wheel so hard the leather groaned. A rage started in my stomach, hot and volcanic. It was not the anger of a disappointed father. It was the primal fury of a predator watching its young being threatened. I turned off the engine. I did not lock the car. I did not care if someone stole it. I stepped out into the freezing air, and the wind hit me like a physical blow, but I barely felt it. My internal temperature was boiling. I walked across the street. My boots crunched loudly on the frozen snow. The people in line looked up at me. They sensed I did not belong here. I was wearing old clothes, but I walked with the stride of a man who owns skyscrapers. The crowd parted slightly. Leo was busy rubbing Toby's arms, trying to generate friction, trying to keep the boy warm. He did not see me coming. He was murmuring something to Toby, probably a promise that food was coming soon. A lie. A gentle lie to keep the boy from crying. Leo. I said his name quietly, but it cut through the noise of the traffic like a gunshot. My son froze. He did not turn around immediately. I saw his spine stiffen. He recognized the voice. He had spent 40 years trying to earn the respect of that voice and failing. Slowly, he turned his head. When our eyes met, I expected to see relief. I expected him to cry out and run to me. But I saw terror. Pure, unadulterated shame. His face was gaunt. His cheekbones were sharp enough to cut skin. There were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant fear. Dad. The word was a whisper, a puff of white steam that vanished instantly. He instinctively stepped in front of Toby, shielding the boy from me, as if I were the threat, as if I were the monster. I stopped 3 feet away from him. The smell of the soup kitchen wafted out the open door. Cabbage and boiled meat. It made me nauseous. Where is the house, Leo? I did not ask how he was. I did not ask why he was here. I went straight for the jugular. That is who I am. That is who I have always been. Harrison Thorne does not do small talk. Leo looked down at his worn-out sneakers. The snow was seeping into them. We are fine, Dad. We are going through a rough patch. Rough patch. I laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound. Rough patch is when the stock market dips. Rough patch is when you have to skip a vacation. I gestured to the line of broken souls around us. This is rock bottom, Leo. This is the end of the line. Toby peeked out from behind his father's leg. His eyes were wide and red-rimmed. Grandpa, he said, I'm hungry. That small voice shattered my composure. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. I didn't count it. It was probably $2,000. I held it out. Get in the car. Now. Both of you. Leo looked at the money like it was a poisonous snake. He took a step back. He was trembling. We can't, Dad. You have to leave. Please, if she sees you. If she knows I talked to you. She. Monica. The name tasted like bile in my mouth. I had never trusted her. From the moment she walked into our lives with her sweet smile and her stories that never quite added up, I knew she was a shark. But Leo was in love. He was soft. He wanted to save her. And now she had drowned him. Where is the house, Leo? I repeated, my voice dropping an octave. Why are you standing in the freezing cold while your wife sits in a home that I paid for? Leo looked around nervously, checking the faces in the line, checking the street corners, as if he were being watched. He leaned in close and I saw the bruise. It was yellow and purple, blooming on the side of his neck, hidden by the hoodie. She sold it, Dad. The words didn't make sense. She can't sell it. Both your names are on the title. She needs your signature. I signed it. He choked out the words. Tears began to spill from his eyes, freezing on his cheeks. She said I was sick, Dad. She and Derek. They told everyone I was having a breakdown. They drugged me. I don't remember signing it, but she showed me the papers. She said if I didn't sign, she would commit me to a state hospital and I would never see Toby again. Derek, the brother, the unemployed loser who had moved into their basement 6 months ago, the parasite I had warned Leo about. So you gave her the house. You gave her my money. And you walked away. I couldn't feel the cold anymore. All I could feel was the pulse in my temple. She has a restraining order, Dad. She went to the judge. She showed him photos of bruises on herself, bruises she painted on. She said I was violent. The police kicked us out last night. They gave us 10 minutes to pack. I looked at my son. This man who used to design bridges. This man who used to have dreams. Now he was a husk. A shell hollowed out by a woman who had played him for a fool. Get in the car, Leo. I am not asking. I reached out to grab his arm to pull him toward the warmth of the rental car. But he flinched. He pulled back so violently, he almost slipped on the ice. No. No, you don't understand. His eyes were wide, wild with panic. He grabbed my lapel, his fingers digging into my coat. She is tracking my phone, Dad. She knows where I am. She told me if I contact you, if I ask you for a single dime, she will call the police. Let her call them, I growled. I have lawyers who eat police captains for breakfast. No, Dad, listen to me. Leo's voice cracked. He looked at Toby, who was now crying silently. She isn't just threatening to arrest me. She said if I call you, she will tell them I kidnapped Toby. She has the custody papers, Dad. She has everything. She said she will put me in prison for 20 years and give Toby to Derek to raise. I stood there on the frozen sidewalk while the snow began to fall harder. I looked at the fear in my son's eyes. It was absolute. He truly believed he had lost. He believed this woman held the power of life and death over him. He didn't know that the game had just changed. He didn't know that by taking my grandson and threatening my blood, she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. I looked at the soup kitchen. Then I looked at the darkening sky. Give me your phone, Leo. He blinked. What? Give me your phone. He handed me the cracked smartphone with shaking hands. I looked at the screen. I could see the GPS icon blinking. She was watching. Good. I dropped the phone onto the concrete. Then I brought the heel of my heavy boot down on it. Once. Twice. The screen shattered. The electronics crunched. The signal died. Get in the car. But Dad, she will know. I opened the back door of the Ford and ushered a shivering Toby inside. I took off my own coat and wrapped it around Leo's shoulders. Underneath the expensive wool, I was wearing a tailored suit, but I didn't feel the cold. I was too fueled by the prospect of the war to come. Let her know, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I looked Leo dead in the eye. She thinks she is hunting a rabbit, Leo. She has no idea she just woke up a bear. Get in the car. We have work to do. The air inside the diner hung heavy with the smell of burnt bacon and stale cigarette smoke that had seeped into the vinyl booths decades ago. It was the kind of place where dreams went to die under the flickering hum of fluorescent lights. I sat on the cracked red leather seat and watched my grandson eat. Toby did not just eat. He devoured the cheeseburger with a frantic intensity that broke my heart. Grease ran down his chin, but he did not stop to wipe it. He ate like he did not know when his next meal would come. And looking at my son sitting across from me, staring into a black coffee that had gone cold, I realized he probably didn't. I did not touch my menu. My appetite had vanished the moment I saw them in that line. I drummed my fingers on the sticky tabletop. The sound was rhythmic and impatient. Start talking, Leo, I said, and do not skip a single detail. Leo flinched. He wrapped his hands around the ceramic mug seeking warmth. He looked like a man who had gone 12 rounds with a heavyweight champion. His eyes were bloodshot, and his skin had the gray pallor of someone living in constant fear. It started 6 months ago, Dad. That was when Derek showed up. Derek, the brother. I remembered Monica mentioning him once or twice. The black sheep. The one who had bad luck. She said he needed a place to crash for a few weeks, just until he got on his feet. You know how Monica is. She has such a big heart. She couldn't say no to family. I narrowed my eyes. Monica did not have a big heart. She had a calculator where her heart should be. If she let someone in, it was because they served a purpose. He moved into the basement guest room. At first it was fine. He was helpful. He fixed the leaky faucet. He played catch with Toby. But then things started disappearing. My watch. The cash I kept in the desk drawer. Your old silver cufflinks. Leo paused and took a shaky breath. When I asked Monica about it, she got angry. She said I was being paranoid. She said I was losing things just like I always do. She told me I was stressed from work and imagining things. She made me apologize to Derek for suspecting him. Gaslighting. The oldest trick in the book. Make the victim question their own sanity so they do not notice the knife sliding between their ribs. Go on, I said. It got worse. I started missing meetings at work. I would wake up at noon with no alarm ringing. My boss called me into his office 3 times. I told Monica I thought I needed to see a doctor, but she said she would take care of me. She started making me these herbal teas at night. She said they were for stress. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. I knew exactly where this was going. The tea tasted bitter, like licorice and chemicals, but I drank it because I trusted her. One night about 3 months ago, I drank the tea and the room started spinning. I remember falling. I remember Derek standing over me laughing. I remember him going through my pockets. Leo's voice dropped to a whisper. He looked over at Toby to make sure the boy was distracted by his French fries. I woke up 2 days later, Dad. 2 days. I was in my own bed, but I felt like I had been hit by a truck. Monica was sitting next to me holding a glass of water. She was crying. She told me I had a psychotic break. She said I had tried to hurt Toby. I slammed my hand down on the table. The silverware clattered. A waitress 2 tables over looked up, but I ignored her. You never hurt a fly in your life, Leo. I know. Leo sobbed quietly. I know, Dad. But she had a video. It was blurry. It showed me screaming and throwing things, but I don't remember any of it. I think they staged it while I was drugged. She said if I didn't sign the papers, she would show the video to the police and have me committed to a mental institution. She said I would rot in a padded cell and never see my son again. What papers, Leo? The power of attorney. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Power of attorney. The legal weapon that stripped a man of his voice and handed his life over to another. I signed it, Dad. My hand was shaking so bad I could barely hold the pen. But I signed it. I gave her control over the bank accounts, the investments, the house, everything. I thought I was saving my family. I thought if I did what she wanted, she would stop. You thought you could negotiate with terrorists, I said coldly. You can't. After I signed it, she stopped pretending. Derek moved upstairs into the master bedroom. They stopped hiding it. I became a ghost in my own house. They would order expensive dinners and make me eat leftovers in the kitchen. They bought new cars. They drained the savings account you set up for Toby's college. And when I finally tried to fight back when I told her I was going to a lawyer, she showed me the restraining order. She filed it last week. She told the judge I was an addict. She used the medical records from the doctor she took me to the one who is on her payroll. The judge gave her exclusive possession of the house. The police came and escorted me out. She let me take Toby only because she said he was annoying her and she wanted to have a party. Leo put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. I am a failure, Dad. I lost everything you worked for. I am 40 years old and I am eating charity food with my son. I should have listened to you. You told me she was no good. I looked at my son. I wanted to shake him. I wanted to yell at him for being so weak. But then I saw it. Leo had pushed up the sleeves of his hoodie to wipe his face. On his left wrist, just above the watch line, was a scar. It was not a surgical scar. It was a jagged, angry purple line that looked like a burn mark. It wrapped all the way around his wrist. Stop. I reached across the table and grabbed his arm. Leo flinched and tried to pull away, but my grip was iron. What is that? I asked. It's nothing, Dad. I burned myself cooking. Don't lie to me. Not now. Not when we are sitting in the ashes of your life. That is a rope burn, Leo. Or a zip tie. Leo looked down at the table. His silence was the only answer I needed. They tied you up, I said. My voice was dangerously calm. It was the night I refused to drink the tea. Derek. He is strong, Dad. He pinned me down. They tied me to the chair in the dining room. They left me there all night. Monica said it was for my own good, to keep me from hurting myself. A red haze filled my vision. I had seen enough. I had heard enough. This was no longer a financial dispute. This was torture. This was assault. And they had done it to my blood. I released his arm. I sat back in the booth and took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate to slow down. Anger is a fuel, but it is a volatile one. I needed ice, not fire. I needed the cold calculation that had made me one of the most feared developers in Chicago. I looked at the waitress who was walking by with a coffee pot. I signaled for the check. When she dropped the paper slip on the table, I picked it up. I took a gold pen from inside my jacket pocket. The pen alone was worth more than this entire diner. I flipped the receipt over. I wrote down a phone number and a name. Lydia Cross. She is the best shark in the city. She makes other lawyers wet the bed. I slid the receipt across the table to Leo. Listen to me very carefully, Leo. Leo looked up, wiping his eyes. He looked like a lost child waiting for instructions. Finish your coffee. Then go into the bathroom and wash your face. Throw away that hoodie. I have clothes in the trunk of the car. What are we going to do, Dad? Are we going to the police? No, I said. The police are for ordinary people. The police take reports and file paperwork. We are going to do something much more painful. We are going to let them think they have won. I leaned forward. From this moment on, the Leo Thorne who cried and begged and signed papers is dead. He died in that soup kitchen line. The man sitting in front of me is just a shadow. You are going to go back into the dark. You are going to let them believe you are broken. You are going to let them believe you are gone. But Dad, surely we should fight. We will fight. But we will fight on my battlefield. I stood up and buttoned my coat. I looked down at him, and for the first time in years, I did not see disappointment. I saw a weapon that just needed to be sharpened. Dry your tears. From now on, you don't have emotions. You have a script. And if you play your part correctly by the end of this week, you will own that house again. And they will be the ones praying for a soup kitchen. Get Toby. We are leaving. The game has just begun. I stood on the porch of the house I had purchased with a cashier's check 10 years ago, and I barely recognized it. The lawn, which used to be manicured to military precision, was overgrown with weeds poking through the snow. There were 3 overflowing garbage cans knocked over near the garage, spilling empty vodka bottles and pizza boxes onto the driveway. It looked like a frat house after a homecoming weekend, not a family home in one of the most respectable neighborhoods in Chicago. I took a deep breath and let my shoulders slump forward. I adjusted my posture, curving my spine until I lost 3 inches of height. I let my hands tremble visibly, a tremor I had practiced in front of the rearview mirror for 10 minutes. The Harrison Thorne who built skyscrapers vanished. In his place stood a confused, frail old man who looked like he could be knocked over by a strong gust of wind. I reached out with a shaking hand and pressed the doorbell. It took a long time for anyone to answer. I could hear heavy bass music thumping from inside, vibrating against the stained glass of the front door. Finally, the music cut off abruptly. I heard heavy footsteps and the sound of a deadbolt sliding back. The door swung open, and there she was. Monica. She looked terrible. Her hairband was a bird's nest of tangles, and she was wearing a silk robe that was loosely tied, showing far more skin than was appropriate for a Tuesday afternoon. Her eyes were glassy and red. When she saw me, she blinked, trying to focus. For a split second, I saw annoyance flash across her face. She wanted to slam the door. I could see the muscles in her arm tense. But then she recognized me, or at least she recognized the potential for manipulation. Her face transformed instantly. The annoyance melted into a mask of tragic sorrow. She pulled the robe tighter and leaned against the doorframe, letting out a long, dramatic sigh. Harrison. Oh my God. Harrison, is that you? She didn't call me Dad anymore. The respect was gone. I made my voice crack when I spoke. I slurred the words slightly, just enough to suggest cognitive decline. Monica. I tried to call. The phone just rings. I came to see Leo. Is Leo here? I brought him some apple pie. I held up a store-bought pie box, my hand shaking so violently that the box rattled. Monica's expression softened into a look of pity that made my blood boil. She stepped out onto the porch and placed a hand on my shoulder. Her hand was cold and clammy. Oh, Harrison. I am so sorry. You had to come all the way out here. I didn't want to tell you over the phone. I didn't want to break your heart. She looked down at the ground, acting out the role of the grieving wife. Leo isn't here, Harrison. He left us. I blinked, playing the part of the confused senior. Left? What do you mean left? Is he on a business trip? She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes with impressive speed. No, Harrison. I mean, he left the family. He has been having problems. Drugs. He started hanging out with bad people. He drained our bank accounts and ran off with a woman he met at a casino. He left me and Toby with nothing. The lie was so audacious, so completely detached from reality, that I almost broke character. Leo didn't even drink beer. Leo was the most faithful, boring man on the planet. But I forced my eyes to widen in shock. I let my mouth hang open slightly. Drugs. My Leo, no. That cannot be right. It is true. She sniffled, wiping a non-existent tear. I tried to help him. My brother Derek and I tried everything. We staged an intervention. But he got violent. He hit me, Harrison. She pointed to a faint mark on her cheek that looked suspiciously like makeup. I gasped, clutching the pie box to my chest. He hit you. I am afraid so. That is why we had to change the locks. For Toby's safety. We are just trying to pick up the pieces now. Derek has been a saint, helping me protect the house from Leo's drug dealers. As if on cue, a shadow fell over us. The door opened wider, and a man stepped out. This had to be Derek. He was shirtless despite the freezing temperature, wearing only low-slung basketball shorts. His chest and arms were covered in prison-style tattoos. Crude ink that spoke of violence and bad decisions. He was holding a beer bottle in one hand, and he looked at me with the predatory gaze of a hyena spotting a wounded gazelle. Who is this? Derek grunted. Monica patted my arm. It is Leo's father, Derek. He is confused. He thinks Leo still lives here. Derek laughed, a short, barking sound. He took a swig of beer and leaned against the doorframe. As he moved, the waistband of his shorts shifted, and I saw it. The black matte handle of a Glock 19 tucked against his hip bone. It was not holstered properly. It was just shoved there gang style. A professional would never carry a weapon like that. This man was reckless. He was dangerous, not because he was skilled, but because he was stupid. I stared at the gun for a second too long, then quickly averted my eyes, pretending to be intimidated. I just want to use the restroom, I stammered. It was a long drive from the airport. My bladder isn't what it used to be. Please, just for a minute. Derek looked like he was about to refuse. He blocked the doorway with his body, but Monica intervened. She saw an opportunity. If she was nice to the rich old father-in-law, maybe she could get more than just a house. Let him in, Derek. He is harmless. Look at him. Derek sneered but stepped aside. Make it quick, old man, and don't touch anything. I shuffled into the house. The smell hit me instantly. Stale beer, marijuana smoke, and the distinct chemical tang of burnt plastic. The living room was a disaster zone. The beautiful oak floors were scuffed. There were cigarette burns on the leather sofa. A massive flat-screen TV was mounted crookedly on the wall, playing a violent video game on pause. I kept my head down, shuffling toward the hallway bathroom. My heart was pounding not from fear, but from adrenaline. I was behind enemy lines. I went into the powder room and locked the door. I turned on the faucet full blast to mask any noise. Instantly, the act dropped. My spine straightened. My hands stopped shaking. I moved with the precision of a surgeon. I stepped up onto the toilet seat to reach the ventilation grate near the ceiling. It was screwed shut, but I had come prepared. I pulled a multi-tool from my pocket and unscrewed the 2 fasteners in under 10 seconds. I slid the grate aside. From my other pocket, I removed a device the size of a kidney bean. It was a military-grade listening bug with a battery life of 6 months and a range of 2 miles. I placed it deep inside the duct, where the magnets snapped it securely against the metal. I replaced the grate and tightened the screws. I stepped down and checked my reflection in the mirror. I ruffled my hair to look more disheveled. I practiced the tremor again. Then I flushed the toilet and unlocked the door. When I came out, Monica and Derek were waiting in the kitchen. They were whispering but stopped abruptly when they saw me. "Thank you," I said, my voice weak. "You are a good woman, Monica. I am sorry Leo turned out this way. I will pray for him." I started to walk toward the front door. As I passed the kitchen island, I pretended to stumble. My foot caught on the edge of the rug. I flailed my arms and my wallet slipped out of my inside jacket pocket. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. It fell open. I had arranged it perfectly. Inside the billfold was a thick stack of $100 bills. Fresh, crisp, benign-looking blue faces. There must have been $3,000 in there, visible to the naked eye. I groaned, reaching down slowly, painfully, to pick it up. Oh dear. My clumsy hands. Derek's eyes almost popped out of his head. He stared at the cash with a hunger that was palpable. He took a step forward instinctively, but stopped himself. Monica bit her lip, her eyes glued to the wallet. "Let me help you, Harrison," she said, her voice dripping with sudden sweetness. She bent down and picked up the wallet. She held it for a second too long, her fingers caressing the leather, before handing it back to me. "You shouldn't carry so much cash, Harrison. It is dangerous." I took the wallet and stuffed it back into my pocket with shaking hands. I know. I just took it out for the nursing home deposit. I am moving into a facility next week. I need to liquidate some assets. It is hard to manage all the accounts by myself now that I am getting so forgetful." I saw the look they exchanged. It was electric. I had just rung the dinner bell. I had told them I was rich, alone, confused, and about to move money around. I was the perfect victim. I walked to the door. "Goodbye, Monica. Tell Toby Grandpa loves him." I stepped out into the cold. I heard the lock click behind me. I didn't walk to my car immediately. I paused near the window, pretending to adjust my scarf. Inside, I could hear them celebrating. "Did you see that stack?" That was Derek. He is senile, baby. He doesn't even know what day it is. He is a walking ATM. That was Monica. I smiled a cold, grim smile that would have terrified them if they could see it. They thought they were the hunters. They had no idea they had just swallowed the hook. I walked to my car, my stride strong and steady. The listening device was live. The trap was set. And the first act of their destruction had just begun. Back in the sterile silence of the Four Seasons suite, the world felt very far away from the grime and desperation of the soup kitchen. The room smelled of expensive linen and fresh orchids. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Chicago skyline glittered like a jewel box. But my attention was focused entirely on the small black box sitting on the mahogany coffee table. It was the receiver for the audio bug I had just planted. Next to me, Leo sat on the edge of the velvet sofa. He had showered and changed into one of the cashmere sweaters I had brought, but he still looked like a refugee. He was staring at the receiver with a mixture of terror and hope. He wanted to believe I was wrong. Part of him still wanted to believe that his wife was a good person who had just made some bad choices. I handed him a pair of noise-canceling headphones. I put on my own pair. I adjusted the volume. The static hissed for a moment, and then the audio feed kicked in. It was crystal clear. It was as if we were sitting right there on the stained rug in their living room. The sound of the front door deadbolt sliding into place echoed through the headphones. Then came the sound I had been waiting for. Laughter. It was not the polite relief of a grieving family. It was the raucous, ugly laughter of hyenas feasting on a carcass. Did you see his hands shake? That was Derek's voice. It was loud and distorted slightly by the crunch of him opening another beer. The old man is practically a vegetable. He dropped his wallet like a toddler dropping a toy. I watched Leo flinch. He looked at me, his eyes wide. I held up a finger, signaling him to keep listening. He is a walking corpse, Derek. That was Monica. Her voice had lost all the sweet, trembling sorrow she had used on the porch. Now it was sharp and cold. He didn't even question the drug story. I told you he wouldn't. He is too old and too guilty. He thinks he failed his son, so he is desperate to fix it. He is going to be our second gold mine baby. Leo's face went pale. The woman he had shared a bed with for 10 years was talking about his father like a target. I heard the sound of liquid being poured into a glass. Probably vodka. How much cash do you think was in that wallet? Derek asked. At least $3 grand, Monica replied. And that was just walking around money. Did you hear him talk about liquidating assets for the nursing home? We need to play this perfectly. If we can get him to sign power of attorney over to me, just like Leo did, we won't even need to sell this house. We can drain the old man dry and leave him in a state-run facility to rot. Leo made a choking sound. He pulled the headphones away from his ears for a second, looking like he was going to be sick. Keep listening, I ordered. You need to hear this, Leo. You need to burn this into your memory so you never feel sorry for them again. Leo put the headphones back on. His hands were trembling, but this time it wasn't from the cold. It was from rage. I am worried about Leo, though, Derek said. His voice dropped slightly. What if he sobers up? What if the effects wear off and he remembers what happened that night? He won't remember anything. Monica snapped. She sounded dismissive. I made sure of that. This was the moment. I leaned forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was the confession we needed. You better be sure, Monica. Because if he remembers that he didn't sign that paper willingly, we are screwed. That is fraud. That is 20 years in federal prison. He was screaming and fighting Derek. You saw him. He was going to call the cops. I had to do it. There was a pause. The silence on the tape was heavy. I didn't just give him the herbal tea that night, Derek. I crushed up 3 of those blue pills you got from your connection in Mexico. The horse tranquilizers. I put them in his soup. In the hotel room, Leo gasped. He covered his mouth with his hand. Tears started streaming down his face again, but these were tears of horror. 3 pills. Derek whistled low. Jesus, Monica. You could have killed him. That is enough to drop a rhino. I had to make sure he was pliable. Monica said, her voice devoid of any remorse. It worked, didn't it? By the time you dragged him to the chair, he couldn't even lift his head. He didn't know if he was signing a deed or a birthday card. He was drooling on himself. It was pathetic. But it saved us. If I hadn't upped the dose, he would have walked out that door and we would be on the street. I looked at my son. The mystery of his mental breakdown was solved. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't weak. He had been poisoned by the person he trusted most in the world. Attempted murder. That is what this was. They had risked his life for a signature. Leo looked at me. His eyes were burning. "Dad," he whispered. "They tried to kill me." I nodded slowly. My face was a mask of stone. "Yes, they did. And now we have them on tape." But the recording wasn't over. "So what if he comes back?" Derek asked. "What if the old man finds him? What if Leo tells him the truth?" Monica laughed again. A cruel, dismissive sound. "Leo is a coward. He is broken. He thinks he is insane. Even if he tells his father, the old man will just think it is the drugs talking. Besides, Leo is probably freezing to death in a shelter right now. He won't last a week on the streets. He is soft." I clenched my fists. My son was not soft. He was kind. And they had mistaken kindness for weakness. A mistake they would regret for the rest of their miserable lives. "I hope he doesn't die too soon," Derek said. His voice took on a sinister, greedy tone that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Why?" Monica asked. "Because I still have that contact in the organ trade. You remember the guy from the poker game?" I saw Leo stiffen. He stopped breathing. "Yeah, what about him? He is looking for a donor match. Type O negative. Healthy kidneys. Leo is O negative." "Exactly." Derek chuckled. A dark, wet sound. "If the idiot comes back here begging for food or money, I say we don't kick him out. I say we invite him in. One more dose of your special tea, and I can drive him to the warehouse in the South Side. My guy pays $50,000 for a kidney. No questions asked. And if Leo doesn't wake up from the surgery, well, nobody misses a junkie, do they?" The silence in the hotel room was deafening. Leo ripped the headphones off his head and threw them onto the floor. He stood up, knocking over his water glass. His face was white as a sheet. His lips were trembling so hard he couldn't speak. He looked like he had just seen the devil. They were not just thieves. They were butchers. They were planning to harvest him like livestock. I stood up and placed my hands on Leo's shoulders. I gripped him hard, grounding him. "Sit down, Leo." He couldn't move. He was hyperventilating. "Dad, they want to cut me open." I pulled him into a hug. It was the first time I had hugged him in years. He collapsed against me, sobbing into my chest. But I did not cry. I looked over his shoulder at the black box on the table, still transmitting the sounds of the monsters celebrating in my house. "They want a body," I whispered into my son's ear. I looked at the recorder with cold, dead eyes. "Fine. I will give them a body. But it won't be yours." Lower Wacker Drive is the bowels of Chicago. It is a subterranean maze of concrete pillars and exhaust fumes where sunlight goes to die. It is the perfect place to meet a man who trades in secrets. I parked my rental car in the shadow of a massive support column. The only light came from the sodium orange street lamps reflecting off the wet pavement. I checked my watch. It was 2 a.m. I wasn't tired. My veins were filled with ice water and caffeine. I was waiting for Frank. Frank used to be a special agent with the FBI until he realized the law had too many loopholes. Now he works for men like me, men who need answers that cannot be found in a public database. The passenger door opened, and a gust of damp wind swirled into the car, followed by a heavy figure in a trench coat. Frank didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was doing. He simply reached into his coat and pulled out a manila envelope thick enough to choke a horse. He dropped it onto the center console. It landed with a heavy thud that sounded like a judge's gavel. "You are not going to like this, Harrison," Frank said. His voice was gravel and smoke. I picked up the envelope. I did not open it immediately. I looked at Frank. "Is it bad?" Frank lit a cigarette, ignoring the no-smoking sign on the dashboard. He took a long drag and exhaled a cloud of gray smoke that obscured his face. It is worse than bad. It is a horror show. Open it to page 3. I flipped open the folder. The first thing I saw was a mugshot. It was a black and white photo of a younger man with a shaved head and a defiant sneer. But the eyes were unmistakable. It was Derek. But the name underneath the photo did not say Derek Vance. Derek Miller, alias the Leech. I looked up at Frank. Who is Derek Miller? Frank tapped the ash from his cigarette out the window. He is a grifter, Harrison. A career criminal. He has done time in 3 states for fraud, forgery, and identity theft. But that is just the appetizers. Look at the next page. I turned the page. There was another photo. This one was of Monica. She looked younger. Her hair was blonde instead of brunette, but that smile, that predator smile, was exactly the same. She was standing arm in arm with Derek outside a motel in Arizona. They aren't siblings, Frank said quietly. They are partners. They have been running together for 12 years. They are a low-rent version of Bonnie and Clyde, but without the guns and without the romance. They target vulnerable men. They find guys who are lonely or weak or too nice for their own good. Monica plays the damsel in distress or the perfect housewife. Derek plays the protective brother or the hard-luck relative. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. Leo wasn't just in a bad marriage. He had been hunted. He was prey. I turned the pages. I saw newspaper clippings, police reports. Who are these men? I asked, pointing to a row of photos of 3 different men. Frank leaned forward, pointing a calloused finger at the first face. That is Gary, a dentist in Scottsdale, Arizona. Monica married him in 2015. 6 months later, Gary filed for bankruptcy and went into rehab for an opioid addiction he didn't have before he met her. She cleaned out his practice and disappeared. He moved his finger to the next photo. A rugged-looking man in a cowboy hat. That is Bill, a rancher outside of Austin, Texas. Married Monica in 2018. He had a stroke 3 months into the marriage. While he was in the hospital recovering, Derek sold his livestock and his heavy machinery. By the time Bill got home, the ranch was gone. Bill committed suicide a year later. I closed my eyes for a second. The image of my son sitting in that soup kitchen flashed through my mind. He was just number 3. He was just another face in a gallery of destroyed lives. And the third one? I asked. Frank sighed. Third one was in Nevada. An accountant. He got off easy. He only lost his pension. He figured out what they were doing before they could get the house. But they broke his kneecaps before they left town just to teach him a lesson about snitching. I stared at the file. The weight of it was crushing. This wasn't a domestic dispute. This wasn't a messy divorce. This was organized crime. This was a systematic dismantling of human beings for profit. They are professionals, Frank, I said. They knew exactly what they were doing with Leo. The drugs, the gaslighting, the isolation. It is a playbook. Exactly, Frank said. And that is why you need to be careful, Harrison. These aren't just greedy suburbanites. These are people who have done this before and gotten away with it. They have no conscience. They have no empathy. To them, Leo is not a person. He is just a resource, like a seam of coal to be mined until it is empty. I looked at the mugshot of Derek again. The Leech. A fitting name. So the restraining order, the allegations of abuse against Leo, it is all fabricated. All of it, Frank confirmed. They have a doctor on their payroll in Mexico who writes whatever prescriptions or medical reports they need. The judge who signed that order didn't know he was looking at a work of fiction. I closed the folder. My hands were steady now. The anger was still there, but it had changed. It was no longer hot and reactive. It was cold and strategic. I wasn't just fighting for my son's house anymore. I was fighting for justice for Gary and Bill and the accountant in Nevada. I was going to be the wall that stopped this wave of destruction. "Thank you, Frank," I said, reaching for my checkbook. "This is everything I needed. I am going to bury them." Frank didn't move. He didn't reach for the checkbook. He just stared out the windshield at the rain-slicked concrete. "There is one more thing, Harrison, and this is the part that scares me." I stopped writing. I looked at him. What could be scarier than this? Frank turned to face me. His eyes were grim. I dug into their financials. Deep. Not just credit reports, but the dark stuff, the street stuff. "Go on." "They aren't just selling Leo's house because they are greedy. They are selling it because they are desperate. They are terrified." "Why?" I asked. "Because they owe money. A lot of money. Derek has a gambling problem. He got into a high-stakes game in Chicago about 4 months ago. He lost big, but he didn't have the cash to cover it, so he borrowed from a loan shark." "A loan shark," I scoffed. "I can handle a loan shark." "Not this one," Frank said. His voice dropped to a whisper. "He borrowed from the Vor in Zakone, the Russian mafia. He owes them $500,000, and the juice is running." I went still. "The Russians didn't sue you when you didn't pay. They didn't send angry letters. They sent men with bone saws." "That explains the rush," I said, realizing the full picture. "That explains why they are trying to sell the house for cash in 48 hours. That explains why they were talking about selling Leo's kidney. They need $500,000 by the end of the week, or they are dead." Frank nodded. "Exactly. They are cornered rats, Harrison. And cornered rats are the most dangerous animals on the planet. They are not thinking logically anymore. They are thinking about survival." He reached out and put a hand on my arm. His grip was tight. "You need to understand the stakes here. If you block this sale, if you stop them from getting that money, they won't just be angry. They will be dead men walking. And if they think Leo is the reason they can't pay the Russians, they will kill him, Harrison. They won't hesitate. They will kill your son just to strip his body for parts, or they will kill him out of pure spite before the Russians get to them." I sat there in the silence of the car. The rain drummed against the roof like a funeral march. I thought about the trap I had set. I thought about the fake investment fund. I thought about pushing them into a corner. I wasn't just playing a game of chess. I was playing poker with a gun to my son's head. If I push them too hard, they snap. If I don't push them, they win. I looked at Frank. "They are desperate," I said slowly. "Good." Frank looked at me like I was crazy. "Did you hear what I just said? They will kill Leo." "Not if I control the timeline," I said. "Not if I make them believe that Leo is the key to their salvation, not their obstacle." I put the checkbook away and pulled out the thick file. I tapped it against the steering wheel. "They need $500,000 to save their own skins. They think the house is the only way to get it. I am going to let them believe that. I am going to let them run right up to the edge of the cliff thinking there is a bridge. And when they step out into thin air, I want to be the one watching them fall." Frank shook his head, but I saw a flicker of respect in his eyes. "You are playing a dangerous game, Harrison." "I know," I said, starting the engine. "But they made the mistake of bringing the mafia into my family business. Now they are going to learn that there is something much worse than the Russian mob. They are going to learn what an angry father is capable of." I put the car in gear. "Get your team ready, Frank. I want surveillance on the house 24/7. If they even look at Leo wrong, I want to know. The trap is set. Now we just wait for the rats to bite." The elevator ride to the 45th floor of the Sterling building was smooth and silent, a sharp contrast to the turmoil churning inside my gut. The doors slid open to reveal the reception area of Cross and Associates. It was a fortress of glass and polished steel where the air smelled of espresso and billable hours. Lydia Cross was waiting for me in her corner office. She was the kind of lawyer who made grown men cry in depositions. She wore sharp suits, and her mind was sharper. She didn't offer me coffee. She didn't offer me sympathy. She simply pointed to the 3 massive monitors on her desk, which were glowing with complex flowcharts and bank statements. "Harrison, you need to see this," Lydia said, her voice tight with professional disbelief. "I have seen messy divorces, and I have seen corporate embezzlement, but I have never seen a demolition job quite like this." I walked around the desk and stood behind her. On the screen was a timeline of my son's financial destruction. It was a digital autopsy of a murder that was still in progress. "Walk me through it, Lydia," I said. "Don't sugarcoat it." Lydia tapped a key, and the center screen zoomed in on a series of transactions. It started 6 months ago. Small withdrawals, 500 here, 1,000 there, labeled as household expenses or medical bills. That fits with the timeline of them drugging Leo. But then it accelerates. "Look at this transfer from 2 weeks ago." She pointed to a red line that slashed across the screen. $300,000. That was Leo's entire 401k, his savings, his investments, everything he had put away for 20 years. Where did it go? I asked, even though I already suspected the answer. It went through a series of shell companies, first to a bank in Delaware, then to a holding company in Nevis, and finally it vanished into an account in the Cayman Islands registered to an entity called New Beginnings LLC. New Beginnings. The irony was sickening. They were starting their new life by cannibalizing my son's past. "And the house?" I asked. Lydia sighed and rubbed her temples. "That is the worst part, Harrison. They haven't just stolen the equity. They have poisoned the well." She pulled up a property deed document. They used the power of attorney to take out a hard money loan against the property. High interest. Predatory terms. They pulled out $200,000 in cash equity about 4 days ago. Technically, the house is now underwater. If they stop paying, which they obviously will, the lender will foreclose within a month. "So Leo is bankrupt," I said, feeling a cold numbness spreading through my chest. "He has no savings. He has no home. And he has a mountain of debt attached to his name." "It gets worse," Lydia said. "How can it possibly get worse?" Lydia typed a command, and a new window popped up. It looked like a private message board for real estate investors. A dark web for property flippers. "My contact at the title company flagged this 10 minutes ago. It is a pocket listing. It isn't on the public market. It is being circulated privately to cash investors." I leaned in closer, reading the text on the screen. Prime Oak Park location. Distressed seller. Cash only. 48-hour closing required. Price $700,000. My jaw tightened. That house was worth $1.5 million. They were selling it for 50 cents on the dollar. "They are dumping it," I whispered. "Exactly," Lydia said, turning her chair to face me. "They know they are running out of time. They know the debt to the Russians is due. They are trying to liquidate the asset, immediately take the cash, and disappear across the border. If they find a buyer in the next 2 days, they will sign the deed, take the money, and be on a plane to Cozumel before Leo even knows what happened. Can we stop it? Can we get an emergency injunction?" Lydia shook her head frustratingly. "I tried, Harrison. It is Friday. The courts are closed for the weekend. Even if I get a judge on the phone by the time we get the paperwork filed and served, they could have already closed the deal. If a third party buys that house in good faith legally, it belongs to them. Leo would have to sue to get it back, and that could take years. Meanwhile, the house is gone and Monica and Derek are sipping margaritas on a beach with your money." I looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere down there in that maze of streets, Monica and Derek were probably packing their bags right now. They were terrified of the Russian mob, but they were also arrogant. They thought they were smarter than everyone else. They thought they had found a loophole. They want a quick sale because they need to pay off a hitman or a loan shark. I said, thinking back to what Frank told me. They are desperate for liquidity. Yes, Lydia said. And desperate people make mistakes. But right now, their desperation is their advantage. Speed is on their side. Unless we can find a way to freeze that asset, they are going to win this round. I turned back to the screen. I stared at the listing. Cash only. Fast closing. No questions asked. They aren't looking for a family to live there. They are looking for a shark. They are looking for someone greedy enough to ignore the red flags because the price is too good to be true. I looked at Lydia. A plan began to form in my mind. It was risky. It was unconventional. And it was exactly the kind of move that had built my empire. Lydia, I said, my voice dropping to a low rumble. Who is the listing agent for this private sale? There is no agent, Lydia replied. It is a direct sale. Contact is a burner email address. Perfect. I walked over to the window and placed my hands against the cold glass. Do you still have that shelf corporation we set up for the chaotic hostile takeover last year? The one with the generic name? Capital Ventures or something like that. Vanguard Holdings. Lydia corrected me. Yes, it is active. It has a blind trust as the beneficiary. Why? I turned around and smiled. It was not a nice smile. I want you to make an offer. Lydia stared at me. You want to buy your own son's house. I want Vanguard Holdings to buy it. I want you to offer them exactly what they are asking. $700,000 cash, no inspection, no contingencies, and tell them we can close in 24 hours. But Harrison. Lydia stood up. Why would you give them money? You are handing them the getaway car. If you pay them, they win. They will take that cash and vanish. No, I said, walking back to the desk. I am not giving them money. I am giving them a rope. I tapped the screen where the wire transfer details would be. We set up the closing. We bring them into a room. We put the check on the table. We let them smell the money. We let them think they have pulled off the heist of the century. We let them sign the deed, transferring the property to Vanguard Holdings. And then, Lydia asked, her eyes narrowing as she began to see the picture. And then we introduced them to the real owner of Vanguard Holdings. I leaned over the desk, my face inches from hers. They want to play the game of finance. They want to hide behind shell companies and fake names. Fine. I wrote the book on that game. But the money, Harrison. If we sign the contract, we have to pay them. I laughed. A short, sharp bark. We will pay them. But we will pay them in a way they never expected. I pulled out my checkbook and slammed it onto the mahogany desk. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet office. They want cash. Fine. I will give them cash. But it will be my money. And it will be on my terms. By the time they realize who signed the check, the handcuffs will already be on their wrists. Draft the offer, Lydia. Make it look greedy. Make it look impatient. Make it look like exactly the kind of predatory deal they are hoping for. Lydia looked at me for a long moment. Then she slowly smiled. She sat down at her keyboard and began to type. The clacking of the keys sounded like machine gun fire. You are a scary man, Harrison Thorne, she said without looking up. I adjusted my tie and looked at the digital reflection of the house that had been stolen from my family. I am not a man today, Lydia. I am a consequence. Send the email. Let's go hunting. I sat in the back of a nondescript surveillance van parked 2 blocks away, watching the video feed on a high-definition monitor. Beside me, Leo was biting his fingernails down to the quick, but I remained perfectly still. On the screen, I saw Lydia Cross walking up the driveway of the house that legally belonged to my son. She looked like a shark in a $2,000 Italian suit. Her heels clicked on the pavement with the rhythm of an executioner's drum. She carried a leather briefcase that looked heavy enough to contain gold bars. This was the performance of her life, and I was paying her enough to win an Oscar. She pressed the doorbell. Inside the house, through the hidden microphones, I heard the frantic shuffling of movement. Monica and Derek had been arguing all morning about money, but now they went silent. Monica opened the door. She was trying to look presentable, but the stress was showing through the cracks in her foundation. She looked at Lydia with suspicion. People like Monica are always suspicious because they assume everyone is running a scam just like they are. "Can I help you?" Monica asked, holding the door only halfway open. Lydia didn't smile. She didn't offer a friendly greeting. She adjusted her glasses and looked at a clipboard. "Mrs. Thorne, my name is Lydia Cross. I represent Vanguard Holdings, a private equity firm based in New York. I apologize for the unannounced visit, but my client is on a very tight schedule, and we have been unable to reach your husband." Monica stiffened. "My husband is indisposed. What is this about?" Lydia looked past her at the peeling paint on the doorframe with a look of mild distaste. "It is about an acquisition. May I come in? Or would you prefer we discuss a 7-figure transaction on the porch where the neighbors can hear?" The words 7-figure hit Monica like a taser. She blinked and stepped back, opening the door wide. "Please, come in. Excuse the mess. We are in the middle of reorganizing." Lydia stepped into the foyer. She didn't take off her coat. She stood in the center of the living room, radiating authority. Derek came out of the kitchen, wiping his mouth. He saw the suit, he saw the briefcase, and he smelled money. "Who's this?" Derek asked, trying to sound tough but failing. Lydia ignored him completely, focusing her laser-like gaze on Monica. "I will get straight to the point, Mrs. Thorne. Vanguard Holdings is currently acquiring properties in this district for a mixed-use commercial development. We have purchased the 3 lots to your east and the 2 lots to your west. Your property is the final piece of the puzzle. We need to demolish this structure to make way for the central atrium of a new shopping complex." Monica and Derek exchanged a glance. They were confused. They thought they were just selling a house, but now they were hearing about commercial development. "You want to buy the house?" Monica asked. "We want to buy the land, Mrs. Thorne. The house is irrelevant. In fact, it is a liability. We are prepared to make a cash offer to expedite the process. We know you have been quietly shopping the property around to private investors. We saw the listing on the shadow market." Lydia paused for effect. She placed the briefcase on the coffee table and clicked the latches open. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Your asking price on the private listing was $700,000, which quite frankly is desperate. It tells us you are in financial distress." Derek bristled. "Hey, watch your mouth, lady. We aren't desperate. We just want a quick sale." Lydia held up a hand, silencing him. "Usually we would negotiate, but my client is in a hurry. The zoning board meets on Monday, and we need to have the title secured by Friday afternoon. That gives us 48 hours. Because of this urgency, we are willing to pay a premium to ensure you do not shop this deal to anyone else." She slid the paper across the table. "We are offering $3.2 million. Cash. Closing in 48 hours. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of a vacuum. I watched Monica's face on the monitor. Her jaw literally dropped. Her eyes went wide and dilated. She stopped breathing. 3.2, she whispered. Million. Derek made a sound like he had been punched in the gut. He grabbed the paper and stared at it. His hands were shaking. 3.2 million. That was enough to bomb the Russian mob 5 times over. That was enough to buy a villa in Costa Rica. That was enough to disappear forever and live like kings. Is this a joke? Derek croaked. Lydia looked offended. Vanguard Holdings does not joke, Mr. Thorne. Or whoever you are. We build cities. This offer is valid until noon tomorrow. If you cannot close by, then we will simply redesign the complex to go around your lot. We will build a 50-foot concrete wall right against your property line, and your house will be in permanent shadow. Its value will drop to 0. So you can take the $3 million now, or you can keep a worthless house. It makes no difference to us. We will take it. Monica screamed. She literally screamed. She lunged forward as if to grab the money out of thin air. We accept. Where do we sign? We can close today. Right now. She was trembling with greed. I could see the dollar signs spinning in her eyes. She had forgotten about Leo. She had forgotten about the crime she committed. She just saw the escape hatch opening up and flooding her world with golden light. Lydia pulled a thick contract out of the briefcase. Excellent. I have the preliminary paperwork here. However, there is one compliance issue we need to address. Monica froze. What issue? Lydia tapped the signature line on the contract. The title of this house is in the name of Leo Thorne. I understand you have a power of attorney document. We reviewed it. Yes, I do, Monica said quickly, rushing to a drawer. I have it right here. It gives me full authority to sell real estate. Lydia didn't even look at the paper Monica was waving. I am sure it does, Mrs. Thorne. And for a standard residential sale, that would be fine. But this is a commercial acquisition involving a change of zoning laws. Our legal department is extremely risk-averse. They are worried about future litigation. If Mr. Thorne comes back in 5 years and claims he was under duress when he signed that power of attorney, he could sue Vanguard Holdings and freeze our entire development. We cannot risk a $100 million project on a piece of paper you printed off the internet. Monica's face went pale. So what are you saying? Lydia looked her dead in the eye. I am saying that for this specific transaction, at this specific price point, we require a quitclaim deed signed by Leo Thorne in person. We need him to look our notary in the eye and waive his spousal rights to the property. We need to know he is on board. Derek slammed his hand on the table. He is not here. He is away, in a facility. He is sick. He can't come to a closing. Lydia shrugged and started putting the papers back into her briefcase. That is unfortunate. If he is incapacitated, then we would need a court-appointed guardian, which takes months. We don't have months. We have hours. If Mr. Thorne cannot sign tomorrow morning, then we are walking away. We will buy the lot across the street instead. Wait, Monica shouted. She grabbed Lydia's arm. Don't go, please. Lydia looked at the hand on her arm with disgust until Monica let go. I am not a miracle worker, Mrs. Thorne. You have the deal of a lifetime on the table. $3.2 million. It solves all your problems. All you have to do is produce your husband. If he is truly in a facility, go get him. If he is on a trip, bring him back. Lydia checked her diamond-encrusted watch. It is 2 p.m. I have a meeting with the zoning commissioner at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Bring Leo Thorne to my office at 9 a.m. to sign the waiver. If he signs, you walk out with a certified check. If he doesn't, the deal is dead. Lydia snapped the briefcase shut and turned to the door. Do we have an understanding? Monica looked at Derek. Panic and greed were warring in her eyes. They needed that money. They needed it to stay alive. But to get it, they needed the one thing they had discarded. They needed Leo. We will bring him, Monica whispered. Good. Lydia opened the door. 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. She walked out, leaving them standing in the center of the room, hyperventilating. As soon as the door closed, Derek turned to Monica, his face a mask of terror. "Where is he, Monica? Where is he?" Monica was pacing, running her hands through her hair. "I don't know. We kicked him out. He is on the street. We have to find him," Derek yelled. "We have to find him right now. If we don't find him, we are dead. The Russians will kill us by the weekend. Call his phone. I broke it, remember?" Monica shrieked. "You told me to smash it so he couldn't call for help." They stood there paralyzed by the consequences of their own cruelty. They had thrown Leo away like garbage, and now he was the golden ticket they desperately needed to find. I watched on the monitor and smiled. I picked up my phone and dialed Leo, who was sitting right next to me. "Get ready, son," I said. "They are about to start looking for you. It is time for you to answer the call." The cheap, prepaid smartphone I had bought for Leo sat on the marble coffee table, vibrating violently against the glass. The screen lit up with a name that used to mean love but now meant destruction. Monica. Leo stared at the phone as if it were a bomb about to detonate. His hands were shaking so badly he could not even reach out to touch it. He looked at me with the eyes of a deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. I nodded slowly, giving him permission to answer. I pointed to the speaker icon. I needed to hear every word. I needed to know exactly how far she was willing to go. "Answer it, Leo," I whispered. "Remember the script. You are broken. You are desperate. You are afraid. Do not let her hear the anger. Let her hear the defeat." Leo took a deep breath that shuddered in his chest. He swiped the green button and pressed the speakerphone. "Hello?" His voice cracked perfectly. It was not acting. It was pure, unadulterated trauma. "Leo, baby, is that you?" Monica's voice filled the hotel room. It was sickeningly sweet. It was the voice she used when she wanted something. It was the voice she used to charm neighbors and teachers and judges. It was the sound of a spider inviting a fly into the parlor. "I have been so worried about you, Leo. We have been looking everywhere. Where have you been?" Leo looked at me. I made a rolling motion with my hand. "Keep it going. I am at a motel." Leo lied, staring at the carpet. "I don't have any money, Monica. I am hungry." "Oh, you poor thing," Monica cooed. Her voice dripped with fake sympathy. "Listen to me, honey. I have good news. Amazing news, actually. I think I found a way to fix everything. I found a way to get us back on track." Leo stayed silent, just breathing into the phone. "There is an investor, Leo. A big company. They want to buy the house. They offered a lot of money. Enough to pay off all our debts. Enough to get you the help you need." She paused, waiting for him to bite. When he didn't, she continued sweetening the pot. "If you come sign the papers tomorrow morning, Leo, I will give you money. I will give you $50,000 cash. You can get your own apartment. You can get a fresh start. And Leo, baby, I will let you see Toby. I know how much you miss him. He asks about you every day." The mention of Toby hit Leo like a physical blow. His face crumpled. He squeezed his eyes shut, fighting back tears. He wanted to scream at her. He wanted to tell her that $50,000 was an insult when she was stealing $3 million. He wanted to tell her that she had no right to keep his son from him. I saw the rage building in his chest. I saw his jaw tighten. I held up a hand, palm open, signaling him to stop. "Not yet." "I don't know, Monica," Leo stammered, following my lead. "I am scared. You said you would call the police. You have that restraining order. Oh, ignore that silly piece of paper." Monica laughed, a light, airy sound that made my skin crawl. "That was just to protect us when you were having your episode. But if you sign the papers, I will tear it up. I promise. Just come to the lawyer's office tomorrow at 9. It will take 5 minutes. Then you get the money and you get to hug Toby." I leaned forward and shook my head. I mouthed the words. Hesitate. Push her. I don't think I can do it, Monica, Leo said, his voice trembling. I don't trust you. I think I should call a lawyer. I think I should call my dad. The air in the room changed instantly. The sweetness evaporated from Monica's voice like water on a hot griddle. The silence on the other end of the line lasted for 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. When she spoke again, the voice was not human. It was demonic. It was low-cold and vibrating with venom. Don't you dare! She hissed the words. If you call your father Leo, if you bring a lawyer into this, I will destroy you. Do you hear me? I will bury you so deep you will never see the sun again. I am not coming, Leo said, pushing her just a little bit more. Listen to me, you pathetic junkie, Monica snapped. Her patience was gone. The mask was off. If you are not at that office at 9 o'clock tomorrow, I am going to call the police. But I am not just going to tell them you are a drug addict. That is too easy. I am going to tell them something else. She took a breath, and what she said next made the blood freeze in my veins. I am going to tell them that you touched Toby. Leo stopped breathing. His eyes flew open wide with horror. What? He whispered. You heard me. Monica said, her voice flat and matter-of-fact. I will tell the court that I found you in his bedroom at night. I will tell them I found inappropriate pictures on your computer. I will tell them you are a monster, Leo. And do you know the best part? She chuckled darkly. I have already started prepping Toby. I told him that Daddy is sick. I told him that if the police ask him where Daddy touched him, he needs to point to his lap. He is 9 years old, Leo. He will do whatever Mommy tells him to do. He is scared of you because I made him scared of you. The silence in the hotel room was absolute. It was the silence of a soul shattering. Leo stood up. The phone was shaking in his hand. His face turned a deep, violent shade of red. The veins in his neck bulged. He opened his mouth to scream. He was going to roar. He was going to unleash a torrent of fury that would ruin everything. He was going to tell her he was coming to kill her. He was going to tell her he had me. If he spoke now, the game was over. She would know he wasn't broken. She would know he was dangerous. She would run. I moved faster than I had moved in 20 years. I lunged across the space between us. I grabbed Leo by the back of the neck and clamped my other hand firmly over his mouth. He struggled against me. He was strong with the strength of a father protecting his child. He tried to pull my hand away. He was making muffled sounds of pure rage against my palm. I looked him dead in the eye. My face was inches from his. I stared into his dilated pupils. I channeled all my will, all my authority, all my command into that look. Don't do it, I hissed silently. Don't give her the satisfaction. Don't let her win. Monica was still talking on the speakerphone, unaware that her husband was being physically restrained from screaming. So here is the deal, Leo. You show up tomorrow. You sign the paper. You take the 50 grand and you walk away. Or you go to prison for 20 years as a child molester. And trust me, you won't last a week in prison with that label. The other inmates will tear you apart. It is your choice. I felt Leo's fight drain away. His shoulders slumped. The rage turned into a cold, hard resolve. He stopped struggling. He nodded once against my hand. I slowly removed my hand from his mouth. I pointed to the phone. Agree, I mouthed. Leo took a jagged breath. He wiped a tear from his cheek. He brought the phone to his lips. Okay, he whispered. You win, Monica. I will be there. Just please don't hurt Toby. Please don't make him say those things. Good boy, Monica said. Her voice was back to being cheerful, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just threatened to destroy a man's soul. See you at 9, Leo. Wear a suit. You look like trash. The line went dead. Leo dropped the phone onto the sofa. He sank down onto the floor and put his head in his hands. He didn't cry. He was past crying. Did you hear that, Dad? He asked, his voice hollow. She taught him to lie. She taught my son to say He couldn't finish the sentence. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights. I felt a coldness inside me that I had never felt before. I had destroyed competitors in business. I had bankrupted rivals. But I had never wanted to physically hurt someone until tonight. She just signed her own death warrant. I said quietly. I turned back to Leo. Get up. Leo looked up at me. Get up, Leo. We have work to do. You need to look perfect tomorrow. You need to look like the loser she thinks you are. But Dad, she is going to accuse me of... No, she isn't. I cut him off. She is never going to get the chance to speak to a judge again. I walked over and picked up the phone. I looked at the black screen. She thinks she is holding a gun to your head, Leo. She doesn't realize she just handed us the ammunition. We recorded that call. Every word, every threat. That is extortion. That is witness tampering. That is child abuse. I offered my hand to my son. Stand up. Tomorrow we go to that office. We sign her papers. We give her the hope she wants. And then we close the trap. And when the steel jaws slam shut, I want you to be the one smiling. The night before the meeting, the air in the hotel suite was thick enough to choke on. It was 2 a.m. and neither of us had slept. Leo was pacing back and forth across the Persian rug, wearing a path into the expensive wool. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. Every time his phone buzzed with a notification, even if it was just a spam email, he jumped as if he had been shot. He was terrified. The adrenaline from the phone call had worn off, and now he was left with the cold, hard reality of what we were about to do. He stopped pacing and looked at me. His face was pale and slick with sweat. I can't do it, Dad. He said the words quietly, but they landed like stones. I can't walk into that room. I can't look at her. You didn't see her eyes when she threatened me. You didn't hear the way she talked about Toby. She is a monster. If I go in there and I mess up, she will ruin my life. She will plant evidence. She will scream rape. She will do whatever it takes. He sank onto the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. I am not strong enough for this. I am not you. You built an empire. You crush people for a living. I design libraries. I draw blueprints. I don't know how to fight a war. I sat in the armchair in the corner watching him. I held a glass of scotch in my hand, but I hadn't taken a sip in an hour. I wasn't angry at him. I understood his fear. Fear is a rational response to a predator, but fear is also a tool if you know how to use it. I stood up and walked over to the window. I looked out at the city of Chicago. The lights were burning bright, a million little stars in the darkness. Do you know why I never talk about my childhood, Leo? Leo looked up confused by the change of subject. Grandma raised you, he said. I shook my head. Grandma adopted me when I was 12. Before that, I was in the system. I was in the St. Mary's Home for Boys on the South Side. It was a warehouse for unwanted children. I turned to face him. There was a boy there. His name was Marcus. He was 15 and he was twice my size. He was the king of the dormitory. Every Friday he would come to my bunk and take whatever I had. My food, my shoes, a comic book I had found in the trash. It didn't matter what it was. He took it because he could. He took it to show me that I was nothing. Leo was listening now. The panic in his eyes was replaced by curiosity. He had never heard this story. For 2 years, I let him do it. I cried. I begged. I hid under my blanket. I thought if I was nice enough, if I was submissive enough, he would eventually leave me alone. But bullies don't work that way, Leo. Weakness is blood in the water to them. It makes them hungrier. I walked over to the desk and picked up a heavy velvet box. One night, Marcus came for a picture I had of my mother. It was the only thing I had left of her. I grabbed it and curled into a ball. He started kicking me. He kicked me until I tasted blood. He kicked me until I couldn't breathe. And in that moment, lying on the dirty floor, smelling the dust and the blood, something inside me snapped. I realized that crying wasn't going to save me. Being good wasn't going to save me. I walked over to Leo and stood over him. I waited until he was asleep. I took a pillowcase and I filled it with the heavy bars of soap from the washroom. I walked over to his bunk. I didn't say a word. I didn't warn him. I swung that pillowcase with every ounce of hate I had in my body. Leo's eyes widened. He had never pictured his father like this. I broke his nose. I broke his jaw. They had to pull me off him. I was screaming. I wasn't a victim anymore, Leo. I was a consequence. Marcus never touched me again. No one in that home ever touched me again. That was the day I learned the most important lesson of my life. The world does not care about your tears. It only respects your teeth. I sat down next to him on the bed. I placed the velvet box in his hands. You have spent the last 10 years crying, Leo. You have spent 10 years hiding under the blanket, hoping she would stop kicking you. But she won't stop. She will never stop until you break her jaw. Leo looked down at the box. He opened it slowly. Inside lay a Mont Blanc fountain pen. It was black lacquer with gold trim. Heavy. Expensive. This isn't just a pen, I said softly. I reached over and twisted the cap slightly. A tiny, almost invisible blue light blinked once near the clip. Inside the cap is a high-definition camera and a microphone. It records directly to a cloud server that my lawyers are monitoring. It has enough battery for 4 hours. Leo ran his thumb over the cold metal of the pen. Tomorrow morning you are not going to be the hero, Leo. You are not going to walk in there and punch Derek in the face. You are not going to scream at Monica. Leo looked at me confused. Then what am I going to do? You are going to be the bait. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. I want you to give the performance of your life. I want you to be the pathetic, broken man they think you are. I want you to stutter. I want you to shake. If you have to cry, then cry. Beg them to let you see Toby. Beg them for the money. Why, Dad? Why do I have to humiliate myself? Because arrogance is their weakness, I said. If you walk in there strong, they will get suspicious. They will wonder why you aren't afraid. They will start looking for the trap. But if you walk in there looking like a beaten dog, they will relax. They will laugh at you. And when people laugh, they get careless. They will say things they shouldn't say. They will admit to things they shouldn't admit to because they think you are too weak to do anything about it. I gripped his shoulder. Let them pour their venom on you, Leo. Let them mock you. Let them threaten you. Capture every single word with that pen. Every insult is a nail in their coffin. Every threat adds another year to their prison sentence. You are not a victim tomorrow. You are a spy behind enemy lines. You are the Trojan horse. Leo looked at the pen. He twisted it in his fingers, feeling the weight of it. He looked at the tiny lens that was going to be his salvation. He thought about Monica's laugh. He thought about Derek's sneer. He thought about his son being taught to lie to the police. He closed his hand around the pen. His knuckles turned white. He took a deep breath, and when he exhaled, the trembling stopped. The fear didn't leave his eyes, but it changed. It hardened. It turned into something cold and sharp like a shard of ice. He looked up at me. The boy who wanted to design libraries was gone. The man sitting before me looked like he was ready to swing a pillowcase full of soap. "I won't let you down, Dad," he said. His voice was steady. "I know." I stood up and patted his back. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we go hunting." Leo didn't sleep, though. He sat by the window holding the pen, staring at the city lights. He was rehearsing. He was practicing his stutter. He was learning how to be weak so that he could finally be strong. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw a man who was done being kicked. The coffee shop was located on the corner of State and Lake, a neutral ground chosen specifically for its noise and crowds. I was sitting in a black SUV parked across the street, watching the live feed from the camera hidden in Leo's pen. On the screen, my son looked like a man on the verge of a nervous breakdown. He was sitting at a small corner table, hunching his shoulders, making himself look smaller than he actually was. He had deliberately not shaved for 2 days, and he was wearing a wrinkled shirt that smelled of stale tobacco smoke, a touch of method acting we had decided on to sell the image of a man spiraling into addiction. His hands were clasped around a paper cup of water, and they were shaking visibly. It was a masterclass in physical acting, but I knew that inside his chest, his heart was beating with the cold rhythm of a soldier waiting for the command to fire. At 9 o'clock, sharp, Monica and Derek walked in. They looked like they owned the city. Monica was wearing a white cashmere coat and oversized sunglasses, the kind that celebrities wear to hide from the paparazzi. Derek was strutting behind her in a suit that was too tight across the shoulders, trying to look like a businessman, but failing miserably. He looked exactly what he was, a thug in a costume. They scanned the room, and when their eyes landed on Leo, I saw a flicker of disgust cross Monica's face. She didn't see her husband. She didn't see the father of her child. She saw an inconvenience. She saw a stain on her perfect new life that needed to be wiped away. They walked over to the table, but they didn't sit down immediately. They stood over him, using their height to intimidate him. It was a classic power move. "You look terrible, Leo," Monica said. Her voice was loud enough for the people at the next table to hear. She took off her sunglasses, revealing eyes that were cold and hard. "Have you been sleeping on a park bench?" Leo looked up at her, blinking rapidly, as if the light hurt his eyes. He let his chin tremble. "I just want to see Toby, Monica," he stammered. His voice was weak and reedy. "You said if I came here I could see him. Where is he?" Monica sat down opposite him, pulling a thick manila envelope from her designer bag. Derek sat next to her, spreading his legs wide, taking up as much space as possible. He stared at Leo with a smirk playing on his lips. "Toby is at school, Leo," Monica said, dismissing his question with a wave of her hand. "You know I can't bring him here. Not when you are in this state. Look at you. You are shaking." "Are you high right now?" "I am not high," Leo whispered. "I am just hungry. And I miss my son. Please, Monica. Just 5 minutes. I will do whatever you want." Derek laughed. It was a cruel barking sound. "You hear that?" Derek said, nudging Monica. "He will do whatever we want. That is a good dog." Monica slid the envelope across the table. She tapped it with a manicured fingernail. "This is the quitclaim deed, Leo. It says you are voluntarily transferring your interest in the house to the buyer. It says you are waiving all future claims. It says you are walking away." Leo looked at the document. He reached out to touch it, but pulled his hand back as if it were hot. "But the house," he said, his voice breaking. "My dad helped me buy that house. It is the only thing I have left." "It is gone, Leo," Monica snapped. Her patience was already wearing thin. "The bank is going to foreclose next week anyway. We are doing you a favor. If you sign this, we can sell it before the bank takes it. And if you sign it right now, I will give you the cash I promised." She reached into her purse and pulled out a bank envelope. She flashed the edge of a stack of bills. $5,000, Leo. Enough to get you a warm bed and a hot meal. Leo looked at the money. You said 50,000, he said. On the phone you said 50,000. Monica rolled her eyes. I lied. Taxes are expensive, Leo. 5,000 is all I can spare. Take it or leave it. If you don't sign, I walk out of here and I call the cops. Remember what we talked about. Remember what I told Toby to say. I saw Leo's hand tighten into a fist under the table. I held my breath. This was the tipping point. If he reacted now, if he showed his anger, it was all over. But he didn't. He took a shuddering breath and let his hand relax. He looked up at Derek, who was grinning like a shark. Please, Leo said to Derek, help me. You are a guy. You understand. That is my house. Derek leaned forward. He picked up his steaming cup of black coffee. He looked Leo dead in the eye. You are not a guy, Leo. Derek sneered. You are a worm. You let another man live in your house. You let another man sleep in your bed. You let another man raise your kid. You are nothing. And then he did it. With a casual flick of his wrist, Derek tipped the cup. The hot black liquid splashed all over Leo's chest and lap. Leo gasped, jumping up from his chair. The coffee was scalding. It soaked into his shirt, staining the fabric dark brown. Oops, Derek said without an ounce of regret. My hand slipped. Maybe you should clean yourself up. You smell like a sewer. People in the cafe turned to look. A few gasped, but nobody intervened. They just saw a clumsy accident. They didn't see the malice. Leo stood there, dripping wet, shaking from the pain and the humiliation. He looked at Monica. She wasn't shocked. She was smiling, a small, tight smile of satisfaction. Sit down, Leo, she hissed. Stop making a scene. Sign the paper. Leo slowly sat back down. He didn't wipe the coffee off. He let it burn him. He used the pain to focus. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the Mont Blanc pen. The pen with the camera. The pen that was recording every single second of this degradation. He uncapped the pen. He looked at the lens for a fraction of a second, acknowledging me, acknowledging the truth. He looked at Monica. If I sign this, he said, his voice steady now. If I sign this, you promise you won't hurt Toby. You promise you won't lie to the police about me. I promise, Monica said. Her eyes were glued to the pen moving toward the paper. Just sign it. Leo pressed the nib to the paper. He signed his name. Leo Thorne. The ink flowed black and permanent. Monica snatched the paper away before the ink was even dry. She checked the signature. She folded the document and shoved it into her bag as if it were a winning lottery ticket. She stood up. She didn't leave the money on the table. She put the envelope back in her purse. What about the money? Leo asked. Monica laughed. Cleaning fee, she said, pointing to the coffee stain on his shirt. Consider it a lesson, Leo. Don't trust anyone, not even your wife. Derek stood up and clapped a heavy hand on Leo's shoulder, squeezing hard enough to bruise. Nice doing business with you, loser. Enjoy the streets. They turned and walked away. They walked out of the cafe and into the sunshine, convinced that they had just won $3 million. Convinced that they had crushed the last obstacle in their path. Leo sat alone at the table. The waitress came over looking concerned, holding a stack of napkins. Sir, are you okay? She asked. That looked painful. Leo took the napkins. He didn't wipe his shirt. He wiped his eyes. But when he lowered the napkin, he wasn't crying anymore. He picked up the pen. He held it up to his face, staring directly into the hidden lens. His expression was no longer weak. The fear was gone. In its place was a look of cold, terrifying clarity. He whispered 3 words, softly, so the waitress couldn't hear, but loud enough for me to hear in the van. Loud enough for the recording that would send them to prison for the rest of their lives. Laugh now, Monica. He capped the pen with a sharp click that sounded like the cocking of a gun. Because that is the last time you will ever laugh again. The interior of the surveillance van was dark and smelled faintly of ozone and stale coffee. It was parked 2 streets away, tucked behind a row of overgrown hedges that provided the perfect cover for our operation. Inside the cramped space, the walls were lined with monitors, glowing with the high-definition feed from inside my son's house. I sat in the captain's chair, my arms crossed over my chest, watching the celebration of the damned. Next to me sat Chief of Police Marcus Sterling, a man I had known since we played high school football together. He was wearing his full uniform, his face grim as he watched the screen. Behind us, 2 legal aides were furiously typing, transcribing every word that was being spoken in that living room. They were building the coffin nail by nail. On the main monitor, Monica and Derek were putting on a show that made my stomach turn. They had popped a bottle of vintage Dom Perignon, probably bought this with the cash advance from a credit card they had opened in Leo's name. The cork had flown across the room and hit the family portrait on the mantel, knocking it face down. A symbolic gesture that they didn't even notice. Derek was dancing around the living room, holding the bottle by the neck, spilling expensive champagne onto the hardwood floors. He looked like a lottery winner who had never worked a day in his life. Monica was sitting on the sofa, her legs curled under her, scrolling through her phone with a manic intensity. She wasn't looking for houses. She was looking for flights. I turned to Marcus and pointed at the screen. "Look at them," I said, my voice low. "They think they are kings of the world. They think they just pulled off the perfect crime." Marcus adjusted his gun belt and leaned forward. "They are confessing to everything, Harrison. We have enough probable cause to kick down that door right now. We have the fraud. We have the elder abuse. We have the drugs. Why wait? Let my boys go in and cuff them." I shook my head slowly, not taking my eyes off the screen. "No, Marcus, not yet. An arrest at night is messy. They will claim confusion. They will claim they were drunk. They will lawyer up and try to cut a deal. I don't want them to have a way out. I want them to walk into that trap tomorrow morning with their eyes wide open. I want them to sign that final contract. I want the federal charges to be cemented in ink." On the screen, Derek stopped dancing. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and pulled out a burner phone. "Quiet." I ordered the room. "Turn up the audio." The technician slid a fader up. Derek's voice filled the van loud and clear. "I am calling the Russian," Derek said to Monica. "We need to tell him the money is coming. If I don't call him by midnight, he sends the cleaners." Monica didn't look up from her phone. "Just tell him we have the check. Tell him we are wiring the funds tomorrow afternoon. Don't tell him we are leaving the country, Derek. If he knows we are running, he might get suspicious." Derek dialed the number. He put it on speakerphone, a habit born of arrogance. The line rang twice before a deep, heavily accented voice answered. "Who is this?" "It is Derek," Derek said, trying to sound confident, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. "I have good news, Yuri. We got the buyer. The deal is done. I will have your 500 grand by tomorrow at 2 o'clock. There was a long pause on the other end. "You are not lying to me, Derek, because you know what happens to liars. I know where you sleep. I know where your sister sleeps." "I am not lying," Derek stammered. "I swear on my life. We sold the house. A big investment firm. Cash deal. I will bring the money to the warehouse myself." "Good," the Russian said. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. And Derek, bring the interest too. Another 50,000 for making me wait." The line went dead. Derek slumped against the wall, letting out a long breath. 50,000, he cursed. That greedy pig. "Who cares?" Monica said, finally looking up. "We are getting 3.2 million, Derek. Pay him the $550,000. That leaves us with over $2.5 million. Do you know what we can do with that kind of money in Mexico? We will live like royalty. She stood up and walked over to the kitchen island, where a map was spread out. I booked the flights, she said, pointing to a red circle. We leave O'Hare at 6 p.m. tomorrow. First class to Mexico City, then a private charter to Cozumel. By the time the bank realizes that the check from Vanguard Holdings has cleared and moved to our offshore account, we will be sipping margaritas on the beach. She laughed, and it was the sound of pure malice. And that stupid lawyer Lydia Cross. She thinks she is so smart with her zoning laws and her corporate talk. She has no idea she just bought a house with 3 liens on it. By the time she figures out we defrauded the title company, we will be ghosts. In the van, the legal aides were typing faster. Did you get that? I asked. Yes, sir, the aide replied. Explicit admission of wire fraud and intent to flee the jurisdiction. That is a federal crime right there. Marcus looked at me. They are a flight risk, Harrison. If they get on that plane, we might lose them. Extradition from Mexico can be a nightmare. They are not getting on any plane. I promised. They are not even making it to the airport. They are going to walk into my conference room, and they are never walking out. I watched as Monica poured herself a glass of champagne. She looked around the room at the mess they had created. Leave everything, she said. Don't pack any clothes. If we walk out with suitcases, the neighbors might notice. We leave with nothing. We buy new clothes in Mexico. We buy new jewelry. We buy new everything. This life is over. She raised her glass in a toast. To New Beginnings, LLC. She smirked. Derek clinked his bottle against her glass. To being rich, and to getting rid of the dead weight. They drank. I watched them swallow the expensive wine, knowing it would be the last luxury they ever tasted. But then the conversation took a turn that I wasn't expecting. A turn that made the temperature in the surveillance van drop 10 degrees. Monica set her glass down. Her face became serious, calculating. There is one loose end, Derek. What? The house is sold. The money is ready. Leo. She said the name like a curse word. What about him? He signed the papers. He is a broken man, Monica. I poured coffee on him and he didn't even flinch. He is garbage. He is a witness, Monica said slowly. I leaned closer to the screen. Marcus stiffened beside me. He knows too much, Derek. He knows about the drugs. He knows about the fake doctor. Right now he is scared and confused, but what happens in a month? What happens if he gets clean? What happens if he finds a lawyer who actually listens to him? Derek shrugged. We will be in Mexico. Who cares? I care, Monica hissed. I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. As long as he is alive, he is a threat. She walked over to Derek and placed a hand on his chest. When we get the cash tomorrow, I want you to make a phone call, not to the Russian, to that other contact you have, the one from the south side, the one who fixes problems. You mean Ray? Derek asked, his eyes widening. Monica Ray charges 20 grand for a hit. We will have millions, Monica said. It is a small price to pay for peace of mind. She looked directly into the camera she didn't know was there. Her eyes were empty of humanity. I want him gone, Derek. I want it to look like an overdose. Find him at whatever shelter he is staying at. Give Ray his picture. Tell him to make sure Leo never wakes up. I want to be a widow. Real widows don't have to worry about their ex-husbands testifying against them. The silence in the van was absolute. The only sound was the hum of the computer fans. Marcus stood up so fast his chair rolled back and hit the wall. That is it, he growled. That is conspiracy to commit capital murder, Harrison. I am pulling the plug. We are going in. I am not letting them hurt your son. I reached out and grabbed Marcus's arm. My grip was like a vice. Sit down, Marcus. Are you crazy? They just put a hit out on Leo. I know, I said, my voice trembling with a rage so deep it felt like magma. And that is exactly why we wait. I looked at Monica's face on the screen. The face of the woman who had promised to love and cherish my son. If you arrest them now, they get charged with fraud and conspiracy. Maybe they get 10 years. Maybe they get out in 5 on good behavior. But this, I pointed to the screen. Solicitation of murder. That is life without parole. That is the end of the line. I turned to Marcus. My son is safe. He is in a hotel room with 2 armed guards outside his door. Ray the hitman will never touch him. But I want Monica to believe she has won. I want her to walk into that room tomorrow, thinking she is buying her freedom and her husband's death. I looked back at the screen. Monica was smiling again, dreaming of her blood money. Let her have her night of celebration. Let her drink her champagne. Because tomorrow I am going to introduce her to a new kind of hell. I picked up the radio microphone and keyed it. All units, hold your positions. No one moves until my command tomorrow morning. Let them sleep. Let them dream. I stared at Monica one last time. Sleep well, darling. Tomorrow you wake up in a cage. The view from the 40th floor of the Sterling building was a panoramic masterpiece of steel and glass. Lake Michigan stretched out like a sheet of hammered silver under the morning sun, but the 2 people sitting at the conference table were not interested in the view. Monica and Derek were only interested in the check that sat in the center of the mahogany table. They had dressed for the occasion. Monica was wearing a white suit that probably cost more than Leo made in a month, and Derek had traded his track pants for a tuxedo that looked ridiculous in the daylight. They looked like children playing dress-up. They looked like vultures waiting to pick the last piece of meat off a bone. Lydia Cross stood at the head of the table. She was the picture of corporate efficiency. She pushed a thick document toward them. Her face was a mask of professional indifference. This is the final purchase agreement, Lydia said. The terms are exactly as we discussed. $3.2 million payable to New Beginnings, LLC. The funds are currently in escrow and will be released the moment the signatures are verified. Monica reached for the pen. Her hand was trembling not with fear, but with anticipation. She was vibrating with greed. She looked at Derek and flashed a smile that was all teeth. We did it, baby, she whispered. Derek nodded, licking his lips. Just sign it, Monica. Let's get the hell out of here. Monica pressed the tip of the expensive pen to the paper. The sound of the nib scratching against the page was the only sound in the room. It was a sharp, final sound. She signed her name with a flourish. Then she slid the contract to Derek. He signed it too. It is done, Monica said. She sat back and exhaled a long breath. Where is the check? Lydia picked up the contract. She checked the signatures carefully. She nodded once. The check is ready, Mrs. Thorne. But before I hand it over, there is one final party who needs to authorize the release of funds. Monica frowned. What do you mean? We signed the papers. We own the house. We have the power of attorney. Who else needs to sign? Lydia didn't answer. She simply looked toward the heavy oak doors at the back of the room. The doors opened. I walked in. I was not wearing the stained coat from the soup kitchen. I was wearing a charcoal gray bespoke suit cut by the finest tailor on Savile Row. I was not walking with a stoop. I walked with the heavy, inevitable stride of a man who moves mountains for a living. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. Monica stared at me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She blinked rapidly, as if her brain was refusing to process what her eyes were seeing. Derek stood up so fast his chair tipped over backward and crashed onto the floor. "What the hell?" Derek stammered. Monica recovered first. Her shock turned instantly into indignation. She stood up and pointed a manicured finger at me. "What is he doing here?" she screamed at Lydia. "This is a private business meeting. Get this old man out of here. He is senile. He doesn't know where he is." I didn't say a word. I walked to the head of the table. Lydia stepped aside, giving me the floor. I picked up the contract they had just signed. I looked at it with mild amusement. Then I looked at Monica. "I know exactly where I am, Monica. I am in my building, in my conference room. Conference. Looking at two people who just signed their own death warrants." Monica laughed. It was a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "Your building. You are delusional, Harrison. You are losing your mind. Call security, Lydia. Get him out before he hurts himself." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a blue file folder. It wasn't new. It was worn and faded. It was 10 years old. I threw it onto the table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped right in front of Monica. "Open it," I said. Monica looked at the folder, then at me. She saw something in my eyes that she hadn't seen before. She didn't see the confused old man she had manipulated on the porch. She saw the shark. She opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside was a property deed. The original deed to the house in Oak Park. "Read Clause 14B. I ordered. My voice was low, but it filled the room. Monica stared at the paper. Her eyes scanned the legal text. I watched the color drain from her face. I watched her skin turn the color of old ash. "What is this?" she whispered. "It is called a reversionary interest clause," I said. I leaned forward, placing my hands on the table. 10 years ago, when I bought that house for Leo, I knew he was soft. I knew he had a blind spot for people like you. So I added a safety net. A clause that states if the property is ever subjected to a fraudulent transfer, or if the primary beneficiary is incapacitated by non-natural causes, the title does not transfer to the spouse. It reverts immediately and automatically to the original grantor. I pointed a finger at my chest. "Me." Monica looked up. Her eyes were wide with terror. "That means," she stammered, "that means the moment you drugged Leo, the moment you forged his signature on that power of attorney, the moment you tried to steal his life. The house stopped belonging to him. It reverted to me." I picked up the contract she had just signed with Vanguard Holdings. "And that brings us to this piece of paper. You just signed a contract selling a property to a corporate entity for $3.2 million. But you don't own the property, Monica." "I do." I smiled. It was a cold smile. "Do you know what that is called in the eyes of the law? It is called federal wire fraud. It is called grand larceny. And because Vanguard Holdings is a shell company registered in Delaware, you just committed a crime across state lines. That brings in the FBI." Derek looked at the door. He was calculating the distance. He was thinking about running. "Don't even think about it, Derek," I said. "The elevator needs a key card, and you don't have one." Monica dropped the deed. She looked at Lydia, then at me. She started to cry, but this time it wasn't an act. It was the tears of a rat caught in a trap. "Harrison, please. We can fix this. We can tear up the contract. I am family. I am Toby's mother. You wouldn't send Toby's mother to prison." I looked at her with pure disgust. "You are not a mother. You are a monster. You are going to kill my son." "We heard you, Monica. We heard you order the hit. We have it on tape." Monica gasped. She put her hand to her throat. You heard everything." I nodded to Lydia. "Open the doors." Lydia pressed a button under the desk. The double doors at the back of the room flew open. But it wasn't security guards who walked in. It was a full tactical team. 6 agents in FBI windbreakers with weapons drawn. Behind them walked Chief Marcus Sterling and my son Leo. Leo was wearing a suit. He looked tired, but he stood tall. He walked right up to the table and looked down at his wife. "Leo." Monica sobbed, reaching out to him. "Leo, baby, tell them. Tell them it was a mistake." Leo didn't flinch. He didn't reach back. He looked at her with eyes that were finally clear. "The only mistake I made was loving you," Leo said. The FBI agents moved in. They grabbed Derek first. He tried to struggle, but they slammed him against the glass wall. The impact cracked the window. They cuffed his hands behind his back. Then they went for Monica. She screamed as the metal cuffs clicked around her wrists. She kicked and thrashed, screaming my name, screaming Leo's name, begging for mercy. I walked over to where Derek was pinned against the glass. He was breathing hard, blood trickling from his lip where it had hit the window. He looked at me with pure hatred. "You set us up," Derek spat. "You old bastard. You tricked us." I leaned in close. I brought my face right next to his ear so that only he could hear me. I wanted him to remember this moment for the next 20 years he spent in a concrete cell. "I am not an old bastard, Derek. And I am certainly not senile." I paused, letting the words sink in. "I am the man who just bought your life for the price of a pen. I am the reason you will never see the sky again. I am your nightmare." I stepped back and adjusted my tie. "Get them out of my sight." As the agents dragged them out, screaming and crying, Leo walked over to the window. He looked out at the city. He looked at the view that Monica and Derek had been too greedy to see. "It's over, Dad," Leo said softly. I put a hand on his shoulder. "No, son," I said. "The nightmare is over. Your life is just beginning." 6 months have passed since the day the steel doors of the federal penitentiary slammed shut behind Monica and Derek. 15 years without parole. That was the sentence the judge handed down. The wire fraud charges stuck. The conspiracy charges stuck. And the solicitation of murder charge was the final nail that sealed their fate. I heard that Monica tried to appeal. She tried to cry in court. She tried to play the victim one last time. But nobody was buying tickets to her show anymore. She is currently trading cigarettes for protection in a maximum security facility in downstate Illinois. Derek fared even worse. The Russian mob has a long reach, and let's just say his time in the yard has not been peaceful. They wanted a life of luxury and easy money. Instead, they got concrete walls and a toilet they have to share with a stranger. It is a harsh justice, but it is the only kind I believe in. I stepped out of my Bentley onto the gravel of the construction site. The air was filled with the roar of diesel engines and the rhythmic pounding of pile drivers. It was the music of progress. It was the sound of Chicago rebuilding itself. I adjusted my sunglasses and looked up at the steel skeleton of the new high-rise that was clawing its way into the sky. This was my latest project. A 50-story mixed-use development that would redefine the skyline. But I wasn't here to inspect the steel. I was here to inspect the man running the job. I looked toward the north sector where the foundation was being poured. Standing on a stack of lumber was a man in a white hard hat and a high-visibility vest. He was pointing at a crane operator, shouting commands over the noise of the machinery. He held a roll of blueprints in one hand like a weapon. He was tanned. He was leaner. The soft edges of the suburban husband were gone, burned away by the fire of betrayal. Leo saw me. He didn't run over like a puppy. He finished his conversation with the foreman, checked his watch, and then walked toward me with a deliberate, confident stride. He took off his sunglasses. The fear that had lived in his eyes for 10 years was gone. In its place was a quiet intensity. He looked like me. For the first time in his life, he actually looked like a thorn. Toby, who was holding my hand, let out a squeal of delight. "Daddy!" The boy ran across the gravel. Leo dropped to one knee and caught his son. He lifted the boy into the air, swinging him around. Toby laughed, a pure, unburdened sound that cut through the noise of the construction site. It was the sound of a childhood reclaimed. Leo hugged him tight, burying his face in the boy's neck. When he stood up, he looked at me. He didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. The respect was unspoken. "Grandpa took me for ice cream," Toby announced. "And we saw a bulldozer." I smiled. A rare, genuine expression that felt strange on my face. "We sure did," I said. Leo put Toby down and patted the boy's head. "Go sit in the truck for a minute, buddy. I need to talk business with Grandpa." Toby ran off to the site office where the air conditioning and the vending machine were waiting. Leo crossed his arms and looked at the half-finished building behind him. "We are 2 days ahead of schedule," Leo said. "I fired the concrete supplier yesterday. They were trying to cut corners on the mixture. I told them if they ever tried to cheat a Thorn project again, I would blacklist them from every job site in the Midwest." I nodded approvingly. "Good. Ruthlessness is a tool, Leo. Use it wisely." Leo kicked a loose stone with his work boot. "I got the letter from the bank today. About the house." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a set of keys. They were the keys to the Colonial in Oak Park. The house that had started this war. The house I had seized back with the reversion clause. "I bought the lien from the bank," I said. "The title is clear. It is fully renovated. I hired a crew to clear out all the trash Monica left behind. I burned the furniture. I replaced the carpets. There is not a single trace of her left in that place." I held the keys out to him. Leo looked at the keys. He didn't take them immediately. "I can't afford it, Dad," he said simply. "I checked my accounts. Even with this job, it will take me 5 years to save up the down payment to buy it back from you. I don't want a handout. I am done taking things I haven't earned." That was the old Leo. I closed my hand around the keys and put them back in my pocket. "I know," I said. Leo looked confused. "I am not giving you the house, Leo. I am offering you a mortgage. You are going to run this project. You are going to bring it in under budget and ahead of schedule. And with the bonus from this job, you will put down 20%. Then you will pay me monthly with interest. Market rate. No family discount." Leo stared at me. A slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't a smile of relief. It was a smile of pride. He understood. I wasn't treating him like a charity case. I was treating him like a man. I was treating him like an equal. "You are a tough negotiator, old man," Leo said, extending his hand. I took his hand. His grip was firm, calloused, rough. "I learned from the best," I replied. Leo looked back at the building. "I am going to build this city, Dad. And I am going to raise Toby to know the difference between price and value." "You do that," I said. "And Leo," he looked back, "don't let anyone in the front door unless you are willing to kick them out the back." Leo nodded. "Never again." I turned and walked back to my car. My driver opened the door for me. I paused for a moment, looking back at my son. He was already back on the lumber pile directing the crane. He was in his element. He was safe. He was strong. I sat back in the leather seat. The silence of the car was comforting. I felt a weight lift off my chest, a weight I had been carrying since the day I found them at the soup kitchen. The war was over. The enemy was destroyed, and the kingdom was secure. "Where to Mr. Thorne?" the driver asked, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. I looked at the city skyline one last time. I thought about the millions of dollars in my accounts, I thought about the foundations I had built. I thought about the legacy that would outlive me. To the law firm, I said. The law firm, sir. Yes. I settled back and closed my eyes. I need to rewrite my will. I finally found someone worthy of the inheritance. The car pulled away, leaving the dust and the noise behind. The road ahead was clear. This story is a reminder that kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. We often think that loving our family means giving them everything blindly, but true love sometimes requires the strength to say no and the courage to fight back when that trust is violated. You cannot save someone who is trying to drown you. Protect your peace, protect your assets, and never apologize for demanding the respect you deserve. If you have ever felt used by the people who were supposed to love you the most, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments if you think Leo should have forgiven his wife or if justice was served. I read every single comment. See you in the next story.